Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this episode, I want to remind everybody that if you can't get enough of the From the Shadows podcast, and let's be real, who can? I want to remind you guys to go to the From the Shadows podcast webpage. And there's links to all of our social media if you want to join and become a member of our follow us on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and all the crazy places that we put up content and share things. You can go check that out. We have a Patreon page if you want to get episodes early and commercial free, and then there's some bonus stuff on there from time to time. Um, and then we have a store where you can get an Ozark Howler t-shirt for all you diehard Ozark Howler fans. Um, but if you want to get a hold of me, the easiest way is to find me on Instagram at Shane Grove Author, send me a message, hit me up on one of our messaging um, platforms, on Facebook, whether it's our From the Shadows or After the Shadows forum page, or on that website, there's a contact button. And if you have an email you want to send us about an experience or just anything you want to tell us about, send me an email. I'll read it. I'll get back to you. And maybe we can have you on the show as a guest. So, with that being said, I want to bring on Jay and Jillian from Virginia, which has, kind of in the last year become a hot spot for stories from us here on the From the Shadows podcast. And I'm going to blame our social media queen Nita because she's lives in Virginia. She kind of stirred some stuff up. She's always nosing around down there in
Mhm.
Virginia, looking for stories and connecting us with eyewitnesses. So Jay and Jillian, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, so just let's get right into it. Tell our listeners, uh, you know, kind of where you guys are at, what's kind of been going on that, we got a message from you guys, or maybe Nita hounded you into sending us a message.
Actually, it's funny. Um, there's a Facebook page that actually has for the mountain, that we live on here in Northern Virginia. We're on the close to the West Virginia line, so not too far from places like Harper's Ferry and stuff like that. Um, now on this page, there was a video somebody shared.
Hmm.
A crazy howl. I think you shared it
Yeah.
on your page the other day, and my wife had mentioned me in a comment and said, "Why don't you reach out and see if there's anybody who knows anything, or you can touch base." So I commented actually on Nita's thing there, and I told her, I was like, "Hey, I really think this is squatchy because there's all kinds of things that happen around here, and we've had some instances, and she got us in touch with you, which was a fortunate thing actually."
It's a wrong thing to say to Nita. I've had a few things happen, and then she but that's a crazy video. And by the time this episode comes out, that we'll have shared that. It's probably been a month ago that it'll be shared. But if you go back on our pages, it is off somebody's Ring camera
Yep.
off their back porch, and it is
Hmm.
crazy. And I think one of the comments, somebody said it sounded like a dinosaur.
I think so
Or
too.
and somebody actually said it sounded like somebody doing work in their shop or something.
Moving furniture.
Yeah, like floor squeak, like moving a furniture or couch across a real squeaky
It
floor.
did not sound like that, but nice
I'm
try.
I'm here to tell you, I've never
Somebody said
moved
Chewbacca too.
Chewbacca. Yeah, but that was more accurate than somebody moving furniture. I got to be
Yeah,
honest with you. I've moved a lot of furniture in my day, and if it screamed like that, I would have dropped it and ran. I'm
Right.
just done. So
absolutely.
okay, so what from your point of view and experience, what has happened that made you curious and kind of get a hold of Nita?
Well, starting when I was real, real young, I've always been fascinated with, the different, the obscure. I've never really wanted to have a closed mind. I feel like if I had a closed mind, then I wouldn't be able to really know truths or, you know, um,
Miss out.
miss out on some really minuscule detail that could be such a big thing. So I'd always enjoyed, especially scary stories when I was a child. You know, um, I know this is going to be some Bigfoot stuff that we've had, but I've personally, I'm a bit of a dog man person, um, you know, werewolves and such. But I've always just enjoyed being an open-minded person and seeing different aspects of different things. It's no pun intended, eye-opening.
And
And
he
I
brought
and I will say I think you're a big man or you're a dog man, werewolf guy because you haven't run into one yet.
Well,
the
I've heard that, and honestly, I really can't say that I have, or you know what I mean. I
Hmm.
can't speak for it until I have the experience, and I'm not saying, oh yeah, let me go out there and meet one. But I mean, we do have a running joke here at the house, though. We have a 120-pound German Shepherd, so he's our baby werewolf, and we hear a funny noise going on outside, and he looks at us, and he's like, "Oh, that's just Timmy, my cousin, the dog man, running around the neighborhood." But but if it were to happen, it were to happen. I may not want to see it again, but I do just find the whole aspect of whether it be Dogman, the Snallygaster up in Frederick, the
Hmm.
Squonk over towards Pennsylvania. Oh, I forget the name of the one that's the mountain rider over there in Colorado. I always think they're interesting. There's stories. There's got to be a grain of truth to it somewhere.
He's just now gotten the opportunity to actually experience some of these things because I've always grown up in the deep dark woods, no neighbors. He's grown up sort of in the country, but in a
Small suburb.
in a suburb. So when we met and he moved up here into the dark mountains, he's now getting the opportunity to experience some of these things that the rest of us that have lived up here just kind of, well, yeah, that's a thing. It happens.
To me, it's
um,
absolutely fascinating because it's like, well, I wonder if I can find the truth behind that. I wonder what's really behind this that's happening.
um, what about the one with the ice storm? Let's tell him about that.
The ice,
The ice shine.
well, that was the windstorm, not the ice storm. We didn't have
Okay.
anything with ice storms.
Either way, the
But
gentleman wants to hear.
the windstorm, I'd say it was what, 3 years ago? Almost,
Yeah.
roughly about the same time, year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we just let all our dogs out. Real bad windstorm going on up here. Uh, in the evening time, I'd say probably about 10 or 11. We were getting ready to go to bed before then. Um, we had brought them back in, but we had noticed that they were staring at something caught their attention off in the corner in the neighbor's yard. There's a road that goes down the mountain that way. Something up there caught their attention. Um, well, we looked over after we got them all in. We were looking, we got a spotlight, checking it out, seeing what's going on. We find silver eye shine over there, like a silverish bluish eye shine. And to me, I don't know very many animals personally. I don't know very many animals that have a silverish bluish eye shine. Um, Now, mind you, the wind's whipping the whole time. Trees are making noise, cracking, uh, branches are falling, like small little ones and everything. Next thing you know, we hear a crack and the absolute sound of the tree fall, and it hits the ground with a big thud. And it looked back behind itself, looked back over at us, and I'm going to presume that maybe this is a natural thing. I was like, huh. And then it walked away.
Completely unfazed by a giant tree slamming into the ground. After the next morning when we were checking out over there, it was a very large tree, and a normal, even a bear would have taken off from that, and it was unfazed. And the eyes were very wide set. Like we have bear up here, and they can get pretty big. We just had one in our trash can the other day, and it was much larger than that.
Oh, absolutely.
And pretty high up off the ground, and it was a very odd place to see something standing there because it had to have been standing just in the tree line. Because behind there, they were at the time they were doing construction.
Yeah.
where we live has been completely untouched until about the 80s. This mountain has never had people this high up on it until about the 80s. And behind us, a branch of the Shenandoah River comes off, and a bunch of underground springs feed through there. So there's a lot of natural resources down there if something wanted to live there. And they were putting a house back there. Like they had to extend the road down there to build
the land.
2 or 3 houses back there. And I have a feeling that they wrestled something out of its house, because I have never seen anything over there like that. And not until they started doing that construction and we started hearing just weird tree knocks and things being thrown like pebbles, and
yeah, because shortly before that there was pebbles and rocks getting thrown at me.
Yeah, he'd
from
be
across
out there.
the street. Not just down the way where they were. It was actually from across the street. I'd take the trash can to the end of the curb, where I'd be sitting there walking with the dogs, and we get pebbles and rocks, probably about, I'd say, quarter size or bigger, thrown at us.
And
It's probably just squirrel. It's probably just squirrels.
Yeah.
The rocks? I don't know. The rocks got to be probably about that big around,
So I want to I want to ask you about the thing that you saw in the backyard. Like, how far away were you from it, and did you only see the eye shine when you shined a light that way?
We were, I'd say that's probably what, 250 feet?
I was going to say about 100 yards, maybe.
Okay, that's 300, but I'd say 250 to 300. Something about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, all we really saw was the eye shine. There's a lot of brush up along that side too, so it's a little hard to kind of see what's at the bottom. But I'd definitely say it was probably about 250 to 300 feet away.
And so now you could only see it though when you shined light on it, or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It was subtle because I came in and got our big spotlight because the dogs were just super interested. They weren't growling, they weren't upset, they were just interested. So I shined it up there and I didn't see it right away. It almost looked like just one of them little mailbox stickers.
Okay.
And then I saw it go away and then come back, like it blinked. I'm like, nope, that is something. Something is standing over there and it's really big.
Yeah.
And so you shining the light on it didn't bother it at all?
No. It just seemed to be like, these guys are really looking like, okay, like I was saying with the tree when it fell, it's like he shrugged his shoulders and was like, okay, time to go.
It was almost like, can you go back inside so I can get back to my house? Because I really don't want to, it was almost like he was just waiting for us to go away so he could go on with his day or whatever. But he was not concerned.
And so you can assume it's not a person standing out there in a storm like that.
No. I wouldn't say it was a person at all. Between, humans not being able to produce eye shine.
And the wide set, it was being that far away and its eyes set so wide apart, there's no way. No way.
That's interesting. I just got asked yesterday for some interview about what I thought about red eye shine, but I've never heard the silver. What would you say, silvery bluish?
Like a silverish bluish eye shine, yeah.
It was very similar to the silver reflection stickers you see on like mailboxes, and that's what I thought it was at first until I realized it was moving. Like you could see it blink or move its head when the tree fell. Like that was not plus there's no mailboxes there. So.
Yeah.
And we've never seen anything there again, so it was certainly something that was there and not there now.
Well, I can tell you as a mailman, there's definitely no mailman out there delivering in that weather.
No.
Standing by a mailbox.
11 o'clock at night, probably not.
I've delivered mail in the dark, but not 11 o'clock at night. But anyway, so okay, that's great. So what was the feeling then? Like, did you feel like something weird was happening, or?
We did have a little hunch, like a little feeling like something's off here, but we don't know what it is. I didn't feel intimidated or scared. I was more curious and like, Heck yeah, let me get up there and go look. And she was like, no, 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 settle down, chill out. I wanted to go take a look a little closer, but she said no.
I think that growing up in the woods and because I am a witch and I'm more in tune with nature than the average person, I think that cryptids are animals, just like humans are animals, squirrels are animals, deer. We're all the same, and there has to be a level of respect there. You
Mm.
wouldn't want him coming banging on your door and rushing in the living room because he's curious about humans. So you kind of have to extend that to cryptids and other wild animals, and I think they pick up on that. They pick up that, hey, these people were respectful. I'm curious, they're curious, but we're not gonna have an all out battle here because I live here and so do they.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot with the being nice. If he's getting pelted with rocks, taking the
Yeah.
garbage out, that's not very much respect.
Rocks.
What's
Well,
that?
I don't think little man's gonna sit out there at 8:30, 9 o'clock, or sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning when I get home from work and take trash out.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, you know, it's how they view us, how
Hmm.
any cryptid would view us. It's perspective.
Hmm.
Because if you ask a deer what they think about humans, they're gonna say, "Oh, they're terrible. They run over us and injure us with their big square boxes, and they shoot us with their scary boomsticks." And
And then then they cut our heads off, and they cut
they bleed
our
out and then
yeah,
eat us.
yeah, they cut
But
our
then
dad.
if you ask a bird will say, "Well, they're lovely
Yeah.
people. They feed us and give
Hmm.
us little places to build nests." So I think it's a perspective
Yeah.
and just trying to coexist. When you live so deep in the woods, you kind of have to learn how to coexist with cryptid, bird, deer, and bear alike.
So so what did you think then? So did the stones getting thrown at you happen before the eye shine incident or after?
I think if I remember correctly, it was before
Okay.
because it was still fairly chilly out
Okay.
because it was about mid, I'd say early to mid spring is when we saw the eyes shine. And it's gonna have to be beforehand because it was colder. I
It
still
was
remember
really
walking
hot.
around with my hoodie and stuff. So it
Okay.
was, and I had worked night shift at the time, coming back from the airport. Uh, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes, oh no, the trash needs to be taken out. There I go to take it over. Squirrel, acorns. I figured, maybe a squirrel is up there, but like when they're coming not from a downward angle, but when they're coming from like a slightly sideways angle, something,
Something's throwing it
something's
at you.
touching it.
So it makes you wonder if something was testing the water to see how close they could get to you or what your reaction would be. And
Yeah,
maybe
I
I guess you
may
could say that.
100%
Yeah.
agree with that. Yes, it's
okay.
curious. Yeah.
I mean, by all means, I try to live a fairly peaceful life, and she's taking the violent streak out of me. My anger streak, she's taking it out. But I've I try to live in peace with those around me, whether it be something living, an actual person, like an animal or a person. I brush it off my shoulder like, okay, cool, whatever. You want to come by? Come on by.
And it
Don't bother me none.
stuck around after it got warm
It
because
did for a little while until about fall.
that summer, you hear all kinds of critters chirping and making noises and bugs all summer long. There wasn't a peep out there
No,
all winter long. You could step outside and it was dead quiet. I
yeah,
mean, like
you
creepy
mean summer?
quiet. Yeah, I'm sorry, summer. And it was odd. I've never experienced that before here or anywhere. I'm used to it being very noisy, and there was not a peep. And my sister, she lives up here as well, and I sent her a message one day. I said, "Do you hear anything outside right now? Is it like noisy or any noises whatsoever?" And she said, "Yeah, it's a normal noises. I mean, every once in a while you can hear them just abruptly stop, but then they start again, and after a little while. But here, within at least this block radius, there wasn't a peep. And that was creepy because, that says to me that there's a predator somewhere, that everybody's laying low and being quiet. And it was interesting because the very next summer, everything was back again. You could hear everything again. And I cannot explain that.
No, that would be eerie for sure. To grow up in that area and know what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And even though you said, they were building houses, that wouldn't affect the bugs and the
Oh,
frogs and everything else at night. Because at night, stuff is just gonna, it's a natural thing for those animals to be alive and awake and doing stuff. So, holy smoke. So, was there any other things that happened, especially that summer?
um, I'd say it was more towards that fall, late summer, early fall. Due to the elevation, we get fog real easy.
Hmm.
So it'll be raining up here, it'll get foggy up here, and you go down the mountain into town, and it's fine. You can get a snow, like a foot of snow up here, and maybe a sprinkling in town. But we were on our way back from a date night. We went bowling. Yeah, we're old. But we were on our way back, and what's weird is there's a monastery on the mountain too. And this was just past the monastery, coming up the mountain by a cattle field where there's houses, a suburb across the street. This, I don't want to say it was a physical being, but it was a presence, like an entity. It was, we were in a, we were in an escape, and it was over the hood, but it went real fast right across the hood, right across in front of us. Like, I hit the brakes and everything. I was like, holy crap. And she was like, what was that? And I was like, I don't know.
Something moving in the
Something
fog.
big and black moved in that fog. That was, I'd say, from where I was sitting in the driver's seat, I'd say it was a good 7, 8 inches higher than the hood of the car when it was on all 4 feet.
Yeah.
I'm going to presume it was staying on all 4. I don't know if it can be bipedal or not, but it was just
looked
weird.
like it was running on 4 legs, but it was not shaped right. Like it wasn't like a dog.
Wasn't like a cow or a horse or anything like that.
No,
It wasn't a familiar shape.
It definitely had a bit of a hunch to it. Like, you
weird.
would see like a chimpanzee or something running with its hands. It was running like that. However, we just couldn't get a definite shape of it,
And as thick as the fog is, there's no way to like look for it. There's no way to stop, and I mean, you can't see anything.
The speed it was going, I wouldn't have been able to catch it anyway.
Yeah, it was fast. It was very fast.
I mean, it just, we didn't catch any eye shine or anything with that. My guess is maybe because there's legends in the area of hellhounds and things like that, and other hounds and Bigfoot and stuff in the mountain. But my only guess is some sort of shadow hound or hellhound or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't feel intimidated or scared or any. Well, I mean, I was kind of scared because I hit the brakes. We were wondering, like, oh crap, holy crap, we don't want to hit this thing. There's going to go the whole front end. But
that may tie in more with it, with the history of our mountain, because we're part of the Appalachian.
Yeah.
So like we're the Blue Ridge portion of that. So these mountains are old. A lot of people look at them and those are puny little mountains. They're not puny, they're just old. I'm talking back when the earth was in Pangea.
Mm-hmm.
The mountains were there. So the things that have been in these mountains have been here for an incredibly long amount of time. And some people would call them, spirits or boo hags or woodbookers. I refer to them as elementals because I think that kind of covers the
spectrum.
The spectrum, yeah. Because they can be animalistic, they can be human. It just depends on the form they like to take. And they're a lot like people. They're all different. Some of them can be very kind and helpful. Others can be how you hear the stories of the Appalachian, where if you hear your name called at night, no, you didn't. And when he moved in here, we specifically had that happen.
Yeah, it was just a few months after that.
He had the dogs outside, and it was more than one occurrence, but I'd be roaming around the house doing whatever I'm doing, and he'd let the dogs out, and he'd bust in the house and yell for me, like, did you just call my name? Nope, sure didn't.
Yeah, I specifically remember hearing her voice one time saying, "Hey, babe," and I was like, "Did you call for me or something?" And
we ended up having to trap that specific entity, and believing in witchcraft or not, it worked because it has not been back. It even tried to mimic him when I was outside at night.
So wait a second. So you said you trapped the entity?
Well, yeah,
in a sense,
we trapped it.
Okay, I need an explanation. You can't just gloss over saying we trapped an entity, and by the way, then we had hamburgers for lunch. I need to know trapping an entity. What does that entail, and what happened?
Like I said, I am a witch, and you may have heard about like a witch's bottle. It's sort of like a ward where a lot of people, especially in Appalachia, will take mason jars and fill them with stinging insects, rusty nails, glass, anything that's
hot pepper,
spicy herbs, things like that.
Yeah.
And they will place them around their property and their home with kind of an incantation on them as a protective ward, so that if anything were to come by, it traps it. You kind of have to write your spells or your wards or incantations, whatever you use. You almost have to be like a lawyer when you write it out, so that you kind of cover your loopholes and your different outs that things may try to use. It's basically the witch's equivalent to Vlad the Impaler, of leaving their heads on a pike in your front yard so that other ones can see it and be like, yeah, maybe not that house. Let's just go down the street.
I gotcha. Okay, I gotcha.
So that's basically what it was, and we did it together. And that was pretty much his first.
That was my first actual
witchcraft
experience, and it was interesting. It really was. I learned a lot, and I've always felt drawn, I guess, whether it be, my mother's bloodline or whatever would have you, to the Norwegian portion, like the Norse gods and things like that. She has helped me grow and learn and help me express that in different ways.
That's the beautiful thing about witchcraft, is it can belong to anything. There are Christian witches. There are, believe it or not, there are Norwegian, Norse god believing witches, and yeah. And so it was an experience for him, and it was sort of intense, because as we gathered everything and put it into the jar, and we were doing the incantation, right outside, we have our own altar room, which has our altars and religious items.
Oh yeah, it was knocking on windows.
Yeah, you could hear it tapping on the window, almost like a thundering, but it was on the house. And then, as we got to the end of the incantation, you could hear it yell, "No!" It was like an anguish no.
Yeah.
So we ended up sealing it up real quick. We poured wax over it. We've got it buried at the edge of the property. Not a single solitary thing as far as elemental action has occurred since. Nope. Nobody's calling our names in the middle of the night. Nobody's rapping on the windows. It's, I mean, well about magic, but it worked for us.
Okay, so time frame here. When does that happen compared to when you see the eye shine during the windstorm?
Okay, so I had moved in December of 2021, And it was shortly after that. So I'd say that was probably
In the summer?
February. It was before the eye shine
Before the eye
incident. It
shine?
was before the eye shine incident. Um, so I'd say it had actually been leading up to that, actually, uh, because we had been seeing each other for a while, and I'd come down and there would be some interesting things, and I'd feel a little weird. Um, remember, because it was right around that time we were like, well, my dog wasn't with us at the time, like living here when I would come
That's
stay down and
right. It
everything.
would
And
have had to
made
been
those,
within a 6-month period. It
yeah,
had to have been.
because shortly after that, after December, um, we probably did that February, March, and then a little bit later started coming the acorns and everything, and then shortly after that was, I'd say, all within about 2 3 months of each other.
Yeah.
It all happened. But
So,
the fog was later that year, though. So
okay, so what, like the first thing that comes to my mind is what if somebody's trying to get their buddy out of the jar?
Hmm.
Okay, like they're throwing rocks at the people that trap their friend or their
I get
whatever.
what you're saying.
You
That's
see what I'm saying?
entirely possible
It's possible.
because, like I said, you have to write your incantations
Yeah.
like a lawyer, and I close that loophole. If the jar breaks, it's still a binding contract. It's in the incantation, so it doesn't matter if the jar breaks because the way that we did it was it would neutralize it and return it to the earth. So it's technically might not even be in the jar anymore. It's been recycled. But even if the jar, I mean, they don't know that. They don't know how I wrote my incantation. So it's very possible that you're right, that they're like, well, maybe if we can get
So,
the jar broken or something, that
well,
we can
so
get it back.
so like what I'm imagining is you have this whole forest, this whole hillside full of these spirits or elementals, and they just moved, for millennia, have moved freely around, hanging out. They're just like just like us going and, hey, let's go watch the ball game at Jimmy's
Yeah.
house, have a barbecue, and now all of a sudden they're like, Jimmy's not at the house anymore. Like, what's going on? Where's he at? All I
Well,
know
that's what
is,
time gets for coming and messing with us. All he had to
well,
do was be nice, and we wouldn't
oh.
end up in a jar.
And
Because
so like what?
we do have plenty of activity that still occurs, but nothing negative.
Yeah.
It's like you'll see something pass outside the window, or we'll see like these weird orange lights kind of swirling around, like almost like an ember
Hmm.
outside of our front window at night. And nothing seems negative. It's that old Appalachia thing where you hear your name at night and you know that one particular is up to no good. So, you know, that's where that one ended up, and it apparently was a good message because everybody else has been great.
Yeah, we don't have any negative. There's no negative energies around the house anymore. I mean, let me rephrase this. Of course, there's negative energies, when I get in a pissy mood or I get mad or something, or she does, which is more often.
When the coffee's not ready in the morning. That's
Damn
fine.
right. Pardon my language. Darn right.
Now that
Um,
video you got of the roar
Hmm.
that happened. Now the eye shine that we had, there was construction on that part of the mountain just behind us. Now on the flip side of that, in the same section where they were driving the machinery up and stuff, on the other side of the offshoot from the Shenandoah, the same people still own it. It's very swampy land. You can't really build on it, so they make it a nature reserve. And what they've done is they go in and they clear out a lot of the old trees and stuff to help new growth.
Hmm.
If you go down that path that way and go directly down, that takes you to the other part of the mountain where they heard that noise. So I
It's not
have
that
a
far. It's not that far
no,
away. Then is what you're saying.
no. If you're cutting through the mountain, it is right across the street. And if you're driving, you're gonna have to take a long way around. But as far as
the crow
the
flies.
crow flies or the animal walks, it's straight through. And they just started doing more dead tree removal out of there maybe a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And that is immediately what I thought when I heard that that it has to be the same thing that was just at the edge of our property, a couple of years back, because it seems to pop up when construction happens or when
The disturbance of their habitat.
some kind of disturbance where they're running machinery or people are in and out. Um, I have a big feeling that it's definitely something. A lot of people want to say that um, what do they call them? Mountain lions are up here.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We do not have mountain lions. Whatever these people are seeing is not a mountain lion.
You need to go and listen to a couple of the other episodes from Virginia.
Yeah, I think I was actually checking out your site
About the
yesterday.
Wampus cat.
No, not the Wampus cat.
Oh,
There is
or the Black
I
Panthers.
can't tell. Yeah, I can't tell. I can't remember exactly. I mean, the one gentleman that was on that knows for a fact because he's with an agency within the state that
Uh-huh.
When I
that
was working, I was an EMT captain for a while, and then I worked with um, a sheriff's office for a while as well. And I'm not going to tell you the area, but it's close to where we are. Not the same county though. And one summer, we relentlessly got calls that people were finding animals dead in their backyard, their pets, their chickens, small things like goats, and that this was before Ring camera and a lot of everybody having security cameras, but they kept saying it was a black panther. And you hear Black Panther, you're like, we don't live in the jungle. There's no Black Panthers. But when there's so many different people, it was a small town, so like everybody kind of knows everybody, but for sure these two groups or these two families don't get along, and you just so happen to get a call from both of them, one night and one 2 nights later. They're not sharing information for a kick or a giggle at the sheriff's office.
Mhm.
We'd send an officer out there, and yeah, they had dead goats, and 3 days prior somebody's pets got slaughtered on the other side of town, and they're both saying they saw a black panther. And it went on like that entire summer, and then it abruptly stopped. Like abruptly, not a peep about nothing.
Now, as far as distance, though, that's maybe 25 minutes car ride from here.
Yeah, so it's not too far, but it's
Still within
yeah, and it
the
was just
region.
very strange to hear that so many people dead on describing this Black Panther. That's what they saw. That's what, the fur that, like, if they're killing white goats and there's a little bit of black fur laying around, that probably didn't come from the goat. So, like, the evidence that they were collecting, and everybody was just very confused on what to do. So we ended up turning it over to the Fish and Wildlife, because those are the guys that probably handle a lot of things that you're going to want to talk to. Like you always try to catch them, like, hey, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen? But they don't like talking.
You'll see.
So
I'll ask them.
they
No,
don't like to answer, though.
No.
they
Even
don't.
professional to professional, they don't want to talk to you about that.
Well, one cousin who works for an agency, he does a lot of remodeling and things, so they send him all over the country to do woodwork. Um, so he's out in national parks, him and one other guy, or him and two other guys, and they take it in shifts. And he's told me, my grandfather, rest his soul, passed away this past New Year's Eve, but he was telling me at my granddad's funeral that we should sit down and have a drink and talk about some of the things that he's seen, especially out towards the Pacific Northwest and stuff. I mean, he's seen some wild things, and he just really hasn't shared or divulged yet.
It's like he's
So,
far enough into retirement now, he's probably okay to talk about it.
yeah.
So you're now, Jillian, your feeling is that most of this stuff happening probably isn't, we're not talking about a Bigfoot family out there. We're talking about more of a spiritual paranormal thing happening.
like I said, these mountains are old and there's a lot here. I think that it I think it's both. I think there are elementals that we deal with, and maybe that was the shadowy thing we saw in the fog, definitely the entity with the whole jar thing. But with the eye shine and that screech on the other side, that is a physical something doing that. That is I mean it's gotta be, like entities and spirits and whatnot, they don't have eye shine. They don't, have a pattern of, I've, my home or my cave or my nest or wherever it is they are living is being disrupted. So now I have to go over here. That's not something that follows that path or algorithm. Yeah. So no, I definitely think there is some sort of creature that I wish we could catch on somebody's door cam, because wouldn't that be, there's so many of those these days. A lot of those door cameras and security cameras, everybody's got them now.
Like AI generated, and you're like, man, this would be good, so good. But
it's so frustrating, but I really believe that somebody's going to catch it one day. Somebody's going to catch it on their Ring camera or their security camera, and we're going to have some answers. Yeah, even just a piece of it, so we could say whether it's more Dogman or more Hellhound or more Bigfoot or yeah, it's got to be something.
Okay, so I want to hear though. You guys sent me a picture of your cousin, something your cousin sent.
Yeah,
Talk to me about that story and how that like, and we'll share the picture. I'm assuming the picture your cousin's kid drew it.
Yep.
Okay, well, it's a pretty good drawing.
Well,
that's what I said.
So actually, my cousin used to live up in Pennsylvania. His wife passed away, her mom. So they moved back down to where I was from in the Eastern Panhandle there, West Virginia. And it was ironic because when we had first got in contact after that first phone call, I had received a message from my cousin saying, "Hey, guess what my kid saw?" I said, "What? A Black Hawk, a really cool plane?" Because I'm a bit of an aviation geek. So um, he sent me a picture of what she drew, and that's what I sent to you. He said, "What do you think this is?" We are not entirely sure what it could be. Well, the first part there is it's walking. It's supposed to be a deck, and it's on the other side of the deck by the trees that are behind their house, because there actually is a lot of construction going on over by that place, that particular part of the county. And she said it looked over between the trees, and she said it was about 8 to 9 foot tall, like a coal colored skin, almost like a real dark gray, sunken in. Her brother will hear footsteps on the porch, steps on the porch, and there's nobody there when he goes to look. At night, I was told that she'll hear tapping on the window too. Um, I asked if there was any name calling, whether they tried to talk to, like it tried to talk to them or anything, and they told me no. What it is exactly, I'm not entirely sure. It could be skinwalker, maybe a rake of some sort. I'm not entirely sure, or it could just be, again, some random creature. But I did ask when it started, when it happened. He said shortly after we moved back down there, and that was shortly after his wife passed away, and his daughter's really, really, it was her mom, so she's really upset and sad about it. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of like spiritual aspect where this is some sort of entity or being that has kind of come forth I'd say from the metaphysical to the physical, and manifested itself through the sadness that she's feeling.
Like
However,
it's feeding on it.
In a sense,
it's
yeah.
feeding on the sorrow and the
sadness and
Especially, she's a teenager, right?
Yeah, she's, I'd say
that's
probably
already
like
enough
16,
trouble.
17 or something like that.
So she's got a lot of feelings and a lot of things going on, and that almost falls in the same parameter of elemental. To me, when he said skin, that was what I said at first. The first thing I asked is there construction? That's the first place I went. Yeah. He said, yeah, actually, there's a lot. And just looking at that, I felt very, very skinwalker, very check for zipper kind of situation.
I mean, when I look at it, I mean, I got to be honest. I think alien.
I kind of feel that too, but because it does kind of look
of the skin
in the fingers.
Oh, whoa! It was just so creepy, and the fact that she got it so detailed that's disturbing. That she has seen it that close to get those details.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of when you first see the aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Some of them. What's that? What's that?
I thought you were going to say the aliens and signs, because that's what I was thinking a little bit.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. But the real tall in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's some that are really tall and spindly, and that kind of looks like I'm like, wow, because I mean that's a lot of times what you hear in alien encounters is they're tapping on windows and showing up and
didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
interesting.
But then there also is a school of thought that the whole alien phenomenon, they are evil entities.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
Presenting themselves as extraterrestrials and making even though they're demonic. Yeah, demonic. Yeah. I have no idea, but if there's anything, I mean, and I don't, we have listeners from all over the world, all over of course, the United States. And I don't think they understand like what your part of the country really looks like. And you can ask my wife, we have never not driven through West Virginia or those parts of Virginia where I have not looked off the highway and said, if there's anything crazy in this world, it's up in those mountains.
Appalachia every time.
It's like there's a lot of legends that come from Ireland and then, the Highlands of Scotland and everything, but it goes back to Pangea when it was all one continent. It's all essentially the same mountain range.
Yeah, just broke apart and floated this way.
And because we've done episodes with trolls and fairies and little people, and some of that stuff is from over in Europe, and it's weird because this is like the second interview in a row where somebody's mentioned Pangea, and the other gentleman was a Native American, and was talking about some early history of his culture, and so I think, like you said, there's the same amount. Because where did the Irish and those guys come and settle? The Scots and the Irish, they came and settled to the Appalachian, and they brought those same legends and lores that they had over there with them. And I'm with you. Like, I think a lot of that stuff is based in some sort of truth, that something happened, or there were some of these entities, elementals, spirits, goblins, troll, whatever they are, that existed or still exist. And people have been passing these stories down, and we just now think if it's not on it's not on our phone or whatever, that it doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, we think in the last 100 years, we're the smartest that the human race has ever been. Well, I think we're probably the dumbest the human race has ever been.
I'm not going to disagree on that, because I actually have a theory on that too, is about the whole how many iterations of human beings has there actually been before a great extinction event, and we've had to start over.
Yeah.
There's that whole theory too. So.
And think of how many extinctions happened through these millions of years. that these mountains have still been here predominantly untouched beyond, Earth breaking apart and moving oceans. But as far as, people coming in and just disturbing things, I mean, these are pristine, untouched areas that are deep and thick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places for things to have always existed. And who knows what all there could be. It's very interesting.
It is.
So I know one of the things that you kind of expressed to me, Jay, was that you'd like to find some like-minded people in the area there in Virginia.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's so I want to encourage anybody that is, here's this episode, because we'll, flag it Virginia and people will check it out. If you, if you have the same interests and, want to start going and checking some stuff out, I think Jay and Jillian will probably go along too. Or probably would love to go and do some exploring of the mountains and check some stuff out. Get a hold of me and I'll get you guys, get whoever in touch with Jay and Jillian. And I like I said, I've had so many episodes from Virginia in the last year. It's crazy. What is happening there?
We can blame Nita.
Nita.
Yes.
She's gonna come after you because you butchered her name.
Well, that's okay. That's how we make friends.
Yes, blame Nita. So before we end the episode here, Jillian, you're the enlightened one out of all three of us. I'm just going to put it out there. Is there any words of wisdom as far as to give to our listeners to coexist more peacefully with the nature and their surroundings?
Respect. If you wouldn't want some random animal doing it to you, don't do it to them. If you don't want them coming in your house and poking around, don't go in their house poking around. The old saying, don't poke the bear. I mean, it's okay to be curious. It's okay to want to learn, but keep your distance. Because if you don't want them coming and treating you in a way that they feel is acceptable, but you don't return the favor. Stay your distance, observe and learn, and be in awe of what you see in the world around you, but also have respect.
Golden rule: do unto others as you would do unto them.
Exactly.
Yeah, whether it's a spirit or an animal or another person. And absolutely. I just want to add that poke the bear saying is a lot like the this coffee may be hot on the label. It's there because somebody did poke the bear and found out it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Just don't do it.
Ideas.
Well, hey guys, I'm glad that you guys reached out. This is I love to hear, some of this history about the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Appalachians and kind of where you guys are at. And I mean, I'm right there with you. I think you guys are in an area where you're just passing through. The stuff that's there in the mountains has been there for so long, and it's just like, when's this addition of human beings going to get wiped out so we could start over,
I get it.
Very true.
Yeah.
And like I said before, if you have any other things or you want me to, if any other things happen, I'll reach out. No problem. I don't mind discussing.
We'll keep you updated. We'll keep a little file. We'll add that to the file. Get a hold of him later when we have enough stuff.
I love it. And definitely keep me up to date on what your cousin's kid, like what's going on with that. That's crazy. Yes. But I'm curious to
help them do a ward like we did here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to see what people will think of that drawing, to think of what maybe she saw. So hopefully it's nothing that's going to put her in danger, but just tell them to be careful for sure.
So, absolutely.
So,
well, thank you so much.
No, I appreciate you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness. or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God